The Pentagon is considering sending several thousand additional troops to the Middle East to help deter Iranian aggression, amid reports of escalating violence in Iran and continued meddling by Tehran in Iraq, Syria and other parts of the region. John Rood, the Defense Undersecretary for Policy, told senators Thursday that Defense Secretary Mark Esper intends to make changes to the number of troops deployed in the region. Other officials said options under consideration could send between 5,000 and 7,000 troops to the Middle East, but they all stressed that there have been no final decisions yet. The officials spoke on condition of anonymity to the troop deliberations follow several decisions since spring to beef up the U.S. presence in the Middle East because of a series of maritime attacks and bombings in Saudi Arabia that the U.S. and others have blamed on Iran. President Donald Trump has approved those increases, even though he also routinely insists that he is pulling U.S. troops out of the Middle East and withdrawing from what he calls endless wars against extremists. In October, Trump told his supporters that despite the sacrificing of U.S. lives in Iraq and other parts of the Middle East, the region is less safe and stable today. The single greatest mistake our country made in its history, he said, was going into the quicksand of the Middle East. Asked about a possible troop increase, Trump told reporters Thursday, "We'll announce whether we will or not. Certainly, there might be a threat. And if there is a threat, it will be met very strongly. But we will be announcing what we may be doing, may or may not be doing." Later Thursday, Trump's National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien said the president was open to sending more troops to the Middle East. "If the troops are needed to deter Iran, we can move them into the region, although I don't think that's happening right now," O'Brien said on Fox News Channel's Special Report with Bret Baier. Military leaders have argued that the U.S. needs to increase its presence in the region to deter Iran from conducting more and broader attacks. Rood provided no details to back up why the additional troops are needed, but said the U.S. is concerned about recent intelligence indications suggesting an increased threat from Iran. Rood was asked several times about reports that 14,000 more troops could be sent to the region. He repeatedly said Esper hasn't made a decision yet, but didn't specifically confirm or deny the number, so his answers appeared only to confuse senators. Shortly after the hearing, Pentagon Press Secretary Alyssa Farah sent out a statement flatly denying the 14,000 number, saying Esper told the Senate committee chairman Thursday morning that "we are not considering sending 14,000 additional troops to the region." The estimated death toll is significantly higher than previous estimates from human rights groups and others, and the administration did not present documentary evidence to back up the claim. But Brian Hook, the U.S. Special Representative for Iran, told reporters the tally was based on a variety of reports coming out of Iran as well as intelligence analyses. Speaking at the State Department, Hook said the U.S. had received and reviewed video of one specific incident of repression in the city of Mashhad in which the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps had mowed down at least 100 protesters with machine gun fire. He said the video was one of tens of thousands of submissions the U.S. has gotten since Secretary of State Mike Pompeo appealed last month for Iranians to submit evidence of atrocities by the authorities in putting down the protests. In it, he said IRGC forces can be seen opening fire on protesters blocking a road and then surrounding those who fled to nearby marshlands where they were sprayed with bullets. In this one incident alone the regime murdered as many as 100 Iranians and possibly more, Hook told reporters at the State Department. He did not display the video but said the actions it depicted corresponded to accounts of a brutal nationwide crackdown on the demonstrations, which started in response to gasoline price increases and rationing. "We have seen reports of many hundreds more killed in and around Tehran," he said. And, as the truth is trickling out of Iran, it appears the regime could have murdered over 1,000 Iranian citizens since the protests began. The dead include 13 and 14-year-old children, he said. Speaking at the White House, Trump said Iran had killed hundreds and hundreds of people in a very short period and called for international pressure to be applied. "They are killing protesters. They turned off their internet system. People aren't hearing what's going on," he told reporters while hosting a lunch for the ambassadors of UN Security Council members. In addition to the deaths, Hook said more than 7,000 protesters had been detained, with many sent to 2 prisons. Hook said that Pompeo had notified Congress on Thursday that both prisons would be hit with U.S. sanctions for gross human rights abuses.
"We have seen reports of many hundreds more killed in and around Tehran. And as the truth is trickling out of Iran, it appears the regime could have murdered over 1,000 Iranian citizens since the protests began. We cannot be certain because the regime blocks information. Among those murdered are at least a dozen children, including 13 and 14-year-olds.